Suzanne Lewis-Johnson. Now she's a former FBI agent. She left the agency to become an advocate for victims of human trafficking. Suzanne, you hear those numbers. Violent crime is not unique to just Memphis. We're seeing it in so many of our cities. But, I myself was looking over my shoulder this weekend when I was out and about. A case like this does draw a lot of attention. How often, according to police, do these random, isolated attacks by a stranger, like the case that we've seen with Liza, happen?
Yeah, I would say those are not the norm. And so we need to be really careful not to base our own behavior and the way that we look for danger and the way we protect ourselves and our families. We need to be very careful not to base our decisions based on those instances alone that do tend to make the headlines. We need to be aware of what's happening in our environment, maybe switch up our routine and have some tools. But more likely, more often, it's the latter instance that was described, where it's somebody who is in relationship with the victim who is the offender.
I'm curious, in your background and some of the cases that you've covered, when you do finally apprehend a predator, in this case, this man in Memphis, is it something that's premeditated or is it a crime of opportunity? Kind of walk us through the mindset once you have these people in the room and you interview them and start to learn more about their decision making.
Well, you've highlighted three particular instances there in Memphis. And when I look at those, I don't see quite the same fact pattern. So I would expect to probably hear something different in the interview room. In the first instance with Eliza, I would expect probably there was some sort of premeditation there. With the two instances following that, I would think those were probably fear-based crimes of opportunity. I can't say for certain. Fear-based decisions are dangerous decisions. So we will see folks get themselves into places they shouldn't be. Offenders, and it's ironic, both predators and parents can make fear-based decisions that make situations worse, not better. As a parent, I want to protect my children and keep them away from all danger, but we know we can't do that we do need to let safe people and safe influences into their lives so that they can help be on guard and watch for those unhealthy relationships, which so often are the basis for the abductions that I would see and that I would work. But going back to those other two Memphis instances, I think you probably had a couple of guys who were in desperate circumstances and made a decision instantly based on the opportunity that they saw in front of them. And we have seen instances where a vehicle is taken and the offender doesn't even realize that there are children in the car and suddenly finds himself in a predicament that he doesn't know what to do with. So in this particular case, I'm happy that those obviously always happy when the children are recovered and that at least to some degree, that person who's made that irrational decision has come to some degree of their senses.
Mm-hmm. We covered this case on Friday. As soon as we heard that Liza had been abducted, police came right out, were very forthcoming with the information they had at the time. We knew very little on Friday night, but following it through the weekend, it continued to gain traction nationally. It became a really big story. And we often get asked, why do some stories grab such big headlines and others, these other cases in Memphis, which were also violent abductions, don't rise to the level of getting coverage? Why is that, investigative-wise, and just as you watch nationally some of the trends that we're seeing that happen?
Well, for one, sadly, volume. There is so much criminal activity that is happening. I wish every one of my cases could have been in the news because the ones that hit the headlines were resolved much more quickly because folks knew that we needed information on those. But they cannot all hit the headlines, and both the police and the media do have to prioritize what gets in front of people. It's also just how apparent it is on the surface that it was an abduction. An offender, a kidnapper, isn't very smart to just straight up abduct someone. It's much smarter from their perspective to be devious and manipulative about it and make it look like something else. And that's why those instances so often don't hit the headlines.
Right. And in this case, the images of her abduction and the violent attack were made.
It was available.
It was available, and it was clearly communicated to the media very quickly. Just a horrific case. Suzanne, as always, we appreciate you coming on. There's a lot that we can all learn, and that family tonight, obviously, in our thoughts and prayers. Appreciate your time.